All right, welcome back to the Closing Room AZ. I'm your host, Jesse Moreno, Realtor investor, and your go-to guy for any real estate needs, any real estate talk. I'm your guy. Before we bring today's guest, let me just start by saying thank you for jumping on the podcast today. I'm excited that you guys are here watching what we're going to be talking about today. If you're thinking about buying a home, selling a property, you got to make sure you reach out to me. Let me know. There's easy ways to reach out to me, whether you reach me through my YouTube channel, my Instagram, or my Facebook. If you look me up, you can always reach out to me. So, as always here at the Closing Room, it's all about straight talk, zero fluff. It's all about, information that you guys can really use out there in this real world when you're buying a property. So, stay tuned, listen to what we got to say. Quick shout out to our sponsor for today. It's Drake's Title. Drake's Title has multiple locations. They are in Arizona. They're in Nevada. And, they've closed over 200,000 transactions since 2007. So 200,000 transactions speaks volumes about this company. They'll definitely deliver a high-level escrow experience to you guys from start to finish. So if you're a realtor, an investor, or a home buyer, make sure you reach out to them. They'll walk you through that process. They do have the right team in place to help you through that. Best way to reach them is drakestitle.com or give them a call, 602-589-5300. Either way, get to them. All right, so today we're going to jump in. We've got a good buddy of mine, Manuel Amaya. I've known this man for quite a while, right? About 40 years?
Yeah. I mean, for a very long time.
It's been a while, and you know what? 40 years has gone by pretty quick.
Yeah, it has.
Right?
Yeah.
For sure.
Definitely a lot of adventures.
Well, Manuel, welcome to the Closing Room AZ. Glad to have you here today.
Oh, thank you.
Cool. Well, a little bit of background about Manuel. I want to, before we kind of start firing away some questions here, and we're going to go do something a little bit different today. We're going to ask some questions that's going to be related to our profession that we're in. And so it's kind of going to go back and forth a little bit, and we're going to open up to some of these things here. But a little bit about Manuel. He's been in the financial industry business for about, 30 plus years?
Yeah, since 1988.
Since 1988.
Yeah, I know that's kind of dating me. Yes, I got into the industry a little young, but definitely some good fortune along the way.
Yeah, I've been in it for a while, man. And in fact, Manuel got me into this business. I think it's just right out of high school, right?
Yeah.
As we were in college, I think sometime about that time range, he's like, hey, listen, get out of where you're working at the warehouse and come into the financial business. And we started at Transamerica.
Transamerica. Wow,
Right.
that's really dating us way back. So Transamerica back in the day was more of, they were involved in everything. I mean, commercial lending, consumer finance, real estate. So on the side that we were on wasn't the investments or insurance side, but it was more on the lending.
Yeah, we're on the consumer side.
Yeah.
And some great experiences going through there. I can remember some of the things that happened at that company. So great experience. Manuel has definitely a lot of experience. Like I said, 30 years. He has a lot of management experience, as well as running divisions for different companies that we worked in the past together as well. So I could speak to that and share with you guys a lot of information as far as his experience, and not just from a management side, but how he ran his divisions within my companies that I worked at. So he's got some strong background experience, whether it was in commercial lending or it's business finance or even real estate lending. So you got it all, man. You know a lot of stuff.
Yeah, kind of, involved in quite a bit. Though we're always evolving, I'm always learning, but everything always comes back to the fundamentals.
For sure.
Yeah.
So here's one of the first questions we want to make sure our listeners are hopefully they could gravitate to some of this information we're going to give them. And by the way, make sure you guys are writing this stuff down. I think there's going to be some things here there's some takeaways that you guys could, you're going to hear in this conversation, and make some notes, make some comments at the end of this podcast too, because we want to make sure we get back to you and answer some of these things that perhaps are going to reflect to some of the things that you guys are currently doing, whether you're a realtor, an investor, or just a homeowner or a renter, anybody, anything that's in the real estate business. So, or related to real estate. So the big question here, one of the things that we had.
So really the big question, Jesse, right? It really comes down to, for your listeners, the consumers out there, those that know us and dealt with us in the past, really, why is a right or the correct realtor needed for you, right? So why does your clients need the right type of realtor?
Yeah, and it's a great question. I think, what they need is someone who has a lot of experience is number one. And that's going to reflect whether it's in the finance side or it's the buyer side, right? As
Right.
me as the realtor, right? Experience is important because you got to know how to navigate through your deals, how to have that conversation when negotiating your transactions, right? Um, in this kind of business, if you don't have the experience, it could be a costly mistake for not just the buyer, but for all parties involved, right? So experience is one of them. Knowledge, you got to have knowledge in this business, right? You got to understand contracts. For me, you got to understand contracts. For you, Manuel, I know you got to understand on the financing side, the lending side, you got to learn, you got to know your contract, your terms, right? But understanding contract, the market trends in the area, it's important. You got to know what's going on in the area, right? I want to get my buyers into a great property, but also in a good neighborhood that's going to reflect what they're looking for, right? It's where they want to be. So
Exactly.
understand the market trends, right? And of course, for you, the lending impact, because as a realtor, I got to work with a good lender, right? And we could talk about that. The other one is networking. So having a strong network, right?
Man, did you touch a
Right.
valuable subject right there? I'm telling you, folks. You got to listen here. If you got the pencil and pen, start jotting this down because this is very good information is about to be revealed.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Having so the network part, having some, having the access to strong lenders that you work with, and it's I don't know. Look, I think overall for me, it's not just the lender, but the relationship within that lender. Who are you working with, right? So am I working with Manuel? Am I working with Tom, Dick, or Harry, whoever it may be, right?
Right.
It's having that relationship with that person, because that person for me is important. That they have the same thing that I have, the experience, the knowledge, right? And even the networking piece of it, because it's who you know within the industry that can help me out. As an example, I'm reaching out to Manuel. I'm like, hey, listen, besides me making my contracts, I need some assistance with some strong home inspectors, right? And Manuel's like, hey, you know what? I've got some people that I've worked with in the past with other realtors that they network with. So you could call so-and-so as a home inspector. It could help you out, right?
Yeah.
So working with people that not just know their business, but outside of their business, their network is important, right? And the last one is relationships, right? So I know it's kind of similar, but when I say relationships to me, that means having a strong connection with that one particular person. So I have relationships with I know a lot of different lenders and home inspectors and everything that relates to my type of business. But I want to have a relationship with just that one particular lender that I know I could go to, that's going to be accessible whenever I call, that could guide me, direct me, and educate me. Because I'll tell you what, I've been in the business for a while, Manuel, but I don't know it all.
No, none of us do.
Right?
Yeah.
So I got to make sure I can rely on I can rely back on somebody else that knows the business as well as I, if not better. If it's not, how am I going to get better at what I do, right? Agree?
I totally agree. Actually, if I can capitalize a little bit on what you were saying. So, if you guys don't know, there's a lot of, especially here in Arizona, if you have work being done on your home and you're ready to list your property, and sometimes the construction guy comes out, or you're having work done, and it's $60,000 worth of yard work, including a pool, and I know that's cheap in today's market, but if you guys don't know, and there's no permission needed, the contractor will actually place a lien against your home during the project, right? And so sometimes that contractor goes out of business for one reason or another, but there's still a lien that's on the property. So at that point, you have what's called clouded title, right? So from a lender's point of view, we cannot lend on that type of property in that particular situation. So it is very difficult for the realtor. So this is where your network gets involved, right? Everything from your title company. The appraiser is definitely going to notice, so they're going to write that on the report. And then also, is the work completed, and is everything up to code? So with that lien against that property, how do you get it off, Jesse? What's the process in that? I know from a lender's aspect, we have certain avenues, but from a realtor, what your realtor is really going to earn his commission, and because they're going to go through fire. I kid you not, fire, just to get this situated, not only for you, but for the buyer coming in, to make sure that property's free and clear, right?
Sure.
That there's no problems with the title or nothing coming back in a lawsuit for something that was done incorrectly. Everybody hates that, right? We just don't know.
Right.
So that's why the contract's important when you go through everything. So this is where you get involved as a realtor, and I'm not speaking for Jesse, right? But I've seen this man in action, folks. And if you don't know the fire that he puts under and the advocate he becomes for you in order to get things done, you just got to listen to the guy, right? He knows what he's doing. He has a plan of action, and he's been through stuff like this before. It's just, it's your first time going through it if you're listing the property, but you got to listen to someone who's very well experienced, who's going to keep you informed through the process and make sure that you're covered every single which way possible.
Yeah. Hey, mate, thank you so much for sharing that. And you know what? You're absolutely right. But like I said earlier today, I don't have all the answers. So I'm good at what I do, but I got to rely on people that know a little more and that are the experts in that particular area of an issue that may arise, right? So, something that's there's a cloud on title for that property.
Yeah.
I'm going to reach out to my title company.
Exactly.
And that's where I reach out to companies like Driggs Title, right? I reach out to these guys. They know their stuff. And not just because they're my sponsor on this, and they do a lot of things for me as well. But they truly are an organization that, in my opinion, can help you with these things that come up on your title. But, working with a strong title. And again, it's who we want to work with, obviously. There's a lot of people on this podcast that are listening that are realtors and saying, I like working with, ABC Title, whatever the case may be. And that's great, right? But yeah, it's going to a title company to walk you through that process to see what it is. Look, I'm a realtor. I know my legal documents on my contracts, right? But when it comes to title, when it comes to anything other outside of my area of expertise, I got to rely on those people that know that kind of business, right?
Right.
I rely on Manuel,
Yeah.
right? I rely on you on questions when it comes to the lending side of it, the financing part, right? For some direction, some guidance. That's your field of expertise, right? Whether it's on the commercial side, the residential side, any of those areas, I got to rely on those folks. I got to rely on them, things like that. But yeah, man, I think if anything, to that question, yeah, I'm going to reach out to my title company. I'm going to reach out to them. They could guide me to that. That's what we pay them for as well, right? So they could do that. They could do their due diligence on your property and know exactly what you have, what liens are on that property. One thing as a realtor, we don't want to get you into a home that has some liens on it that I am not aware of, and then becomes an issue down the road. Here's another thing. So I'm going to throw something out here that's important for my listeners to know. If you're a for sale by owner person, you're selling your own property, right? And you have some issues and you got these buyers coming into your property to look at it and they don't know about it, there could be some legal action there. Right? There could be some problems down the road. So buyers, hey, listen, before you end up jumping in, I get it. You trying to save some money perhaps. You're like, listen, I could do it on my own. Or I could, I'm comfortable working with this seller. You need to get with an agent to walk you through those documents and contract signings, and you need to get with the title company to make sure that property has no liens, no judgments, anything that's going to clout that title when you're ready to buy that property, right? So it's important. Just a little something out there, and I can spend time kind of trying to educate everybody on this, on different areas of that. But I want to stick to our topics because I know we have some things we want to talk about.
I could add a lot more to what you're saying from the lender's point of view,
right?
Buying a property, and it's a personal transaction. Since we're taking on the risk, right, financing that property, and so we have to make sure everything's in line. So we're also going to pull a title report, right? We're going to make sure that
Absolutely.
that property's in line. We're going to make sure when we send out the appraiser, because remember, we're financing no matter the amount, right? Unless you're doing a cash purchase and you're buying as is, and you assume all of risk. But if the bank is financing or the lender is financing you, we want to make sure that, number one, you're not going into foreclosure because it's horrible. You get into the property. We've seen it many times. The plumbing doesn't work, right? The foundation has a crack and all of a sudden there's a problem. The roof is not up to par and all of a sudden in Arizona, we got quite a bit of storms, right? We have hail, we have wind, we have, downpours of rain. Yeah, it may rain
Absolutely.
for 3 to 5 minutes, but you got a couple of inches in that time frame, right? So many times, we have people come back and say, hey, man, I can't make my payment because now I'm trying to obtain other financing. So now your debt ratio went up after the sale, right? And so now you're in a financial predicament based upon everything. You call your homeowner's insurance. Homeowner's insurance is like, it was a pre-existing condition. What can you do? So as your financier, as your center of influence in finance, definitely got to go through him in order to get to me. But it becomes very difficult, becomes very challenging. So we have to be creative. But you don't want to take that financial responsibility just doing that, right? So that's why it's important up front. You have somebody not only who's knowledgeable, but also has the capability to position you in such a way where they don't go back to the original seller. Because
Right.
how many times have you seen it where they sue the original seller for non-disclosure?
Right. It happens. It
Yeah.
happens. That's why you gotta, you gotta reach out to the experts in that field, whether it be the lending side or the real estate side. It's important. You brought up, some common problems within our
Yeah,
industry.
that's very
and that's it's something that our listeners need to be aware of, right? Especially the buyer, or the seller as well, right? We're talking about issues that could common problems that could happen when you're financing, appraisal issues, right? Property inspections, right?
Oh my goodness,
Things that you
yeah.
could find in the property that could cause your property not going, that's probably can't move forward with it because there could be structural damage, there could be mold in the property. There's a lot of things that could pop up, and of course, that's why it's important to have a home inspection done, anyways, to find these mistakes if there's any within the property. Contract timelines is another one too, right? Like
Yeah.
when you got to close, right? Is your home that you're buying from these people, are their home contingent to that purchase, right? To that buyer that's buying the property. There's a lot of moving parts. So that brings up a lot of the common issues that could happen. But getting with the right folks, getting with the professional, the right people to help you through that process makes it so much easy. That's why you're paying us, I guess. And let's be blunt and be transparent about it. You're paying for my service, and you're paying for your service, so that we can take care of those issues up front, so that we know. That's what we pay to do, is to figure out what's going on with that transaction and how it's being handled, right? So it's definitely important. Then we got buyer mistakes when people are buying these properties, right? Sometimes they're rushing into these properties, and ignoring certain things that could cause them to not be able to afford, or perhaps, as they say, you become house poor. They buy this property, get over their heads, they just qualified, but they don't see the big picture. So getting with a professional financial advisor or a lender, a realtor, we're going to help you, but we want to educate you and say, listen, maybe this is not for you, because, you don't want to be house poor, right?
Right.
So we got to be careful, right? But those are common mistakes that happen, man. And man, you bring that up, and we could talk about that as well and spend a lot of time in it.
Yeah, that'll be another podcast on that section, because
absolutely,
this is why it's so important having a realtor that has a good network and then a great network, right?
Right.
And that's where you bring the experience and the whole team to be able to support the client. And the reason I say client, because not customer is a one-time thing, a client's something that you have forever, because it's not the first time purchase. I don't know how many times you and I have shown clients not just to buy one property, but really within what their plan is for their financial future, how to use real estate to get to that next level.
Absolutely. Look, we are coming up on our time. And I mentioned earlier too, when we started this, that we're going to come so quick on we try to keep our podcast just enough time for our listeners to really get as much as we can, but there's not enough information provided right now on this podcast that I wanted to give, because we have a lot going on. So let's do another podcast coming up. Let's get another one going so we could talk about things for business owners and investors, because we haven't even tapped into that. And I want to talk about those things. And then, what sets us apart from other realtors and other lenders and financial advisors and so forth, right? So we want to talk about those things. And then, we want to talk a little bit about the core message overall, the philosophy behind this core message and what it means. So we'll come back to that, and we'll tackle it here in a second. What do you think about that? Are you down for that?
That sounds fantastic, Jesse.
All right. Well, listen, big thank you for you coming out, man. I do appreciate you, man. You do definitely have a lot of insight. And I know there wasn't a lot that we could have tackled right now, because it goes by way too quick. But we are going to have you come back. We're going to recap on what we talked about, and then, of course, hit up those other topics that I mentioned here a second ago, because I think it's important for our listeners to know about. But in the meantime, I want to let everybody know, if you guys have any questions, reach out to us. You can always follow me on Instagram. It's the Closing Room AZ. Type in all one word, the Closing Room AZ. You'll find me. Just look for my logo. It says Closing Room AZ, and that's where I'm at. Click on it, and away you go. It's pretty simple, easy to get to. You can always send me information as far as if you want to talk about something different, you want to hear something else that you want to kind of cover on our next podcast. We could do that as well. I do appreciate your time being here with us today. Thank you for joining us. And until next time, have a blessed week, and set no limits.